Dear learners, welcome you all to e-learning platform. In this week 11, you're going to learn the summary from the chapters 51 to 61 of the novel Pride and Prejudice, written by Jane Austen. Me, Faisal Ahmed, as usual, throughout the whole lecture from the beginning to the end, faculty member, Department of English, World University of Bangladesh. Let's begin. Along with the summary from the chapter 51 to 61, we also discuss about symbolism in the novel. Summary from chapter 51 to 61. Chapter 51. Lydia and Wickham arrive at Longbourn. Lydia lets it drop that Darcy was at her wedding, but immediately says that his being there was meant to have been a secret and that she cannot say any more. Elizabeth is wild with curiosity to know what his involvement has been and writes to Mrs. Gardiner in the hope of finding out. Chapter 52. Mrs. Gardiner replies to Elizabeth's letter telling her that Darcy found Wickham and Lydia in London, discovered that while Lydia would not think of leaving Wickham, he had no intention of marrying her and hoped to make his fortune and clear his debts by marrying well elsewhere. Darcy, to save the Bennets from disgrace, gave Wickham enough money to make marrying Lydia worth his while. Mrs. Gardiner hints that Darcy did all this from love of Elizabeth and insinuates that they will soon be married. Elizabeth is overwhelmed by Darcy's generosity and embarrassed by the fact that her family still has a low opinion of him when he has done so much for them. Wickham tries to renew the subject of his ill treatment at the hands of Darcy with Elizabeth, but she will not be drawn in. Chapter 53. Lydia and Wickham leave for Newcastle. News arrives that Mr. Bingley is returning to Netherfield. Mrs. Bennet is delighted. Jane attempts to be composed and Elizabeth wonders why he is coming and whether Darcy approves of his return to the neighborhood, given that it will inevitably involve his seeing Jane again. Bingley calls on the Bennets, bringing Darcy with him shortly after his arrival. Elizabeth distressed by how quiet Darcy is, but Bingley shows signs of renewing his interest in Jane. Chapter 54. Darcy and Bingley dine at Longbourn. Elizabeth is frustrated by how little she and Darcy are able to talk to each other. Bingley continues to be very attentive to Jane. Chapter 55. Darcy goes to London on business. While he is away, Bingley spends more and more time at Longbourn, which culminates in his asking Jane to marry him. The whole family are overjoyed. Chapter 56. Lady Catherine de Bourgh calls unexpectedly at Longbourn. She has heard a rumor that Elizabeth and Darcy are engaged and asks Elizabeth if this is true, warning her that Darcy is marked out for her own daughter and that she will oppose any other match for him, especially one with someone so unequal to him in social status. Elizabeth will not submit to such bullying tactics, but eventually admits that she and Darcy are not engaged. She refuses to promise, however, that she will never enter into such an engagement. Lady Catherine leaves disgusted with what she sees as presumption and rudeness on Elizabeth's part. Chapter 57. Elizabeth worries that Lady Catherine may use her influence with her nephew and that Darcy may drop her acquaintance. Mr. Bennet receives a letter from Mr. Collins congratulating him on Jane's engagement, but warning him that he has heard from the Lucases that Elizabeth and Darcy may soon become engaged and that Lady Catherine will not look upon the match with a friendly eye. Mr. Bennet thinks the whole affair is ridiculous and amusing, but Elizabeth is not able to take it so lightly. Chapter 58. Darcy returns from London and comes to Longbourn with Bingley. While they are out walking, Elizabeth finds an opportunity to thank Darcy for what he did in bringing about Lydia's marriage. Darcy replies that his sole intention was to save Elizabeth pain. He assures her that he will loves her and asks to know whether her feelings towards him have changed. Elizabeth tells him that they have. They spend the rest of the walk talking over the last few months. Chapter 59. Elizabeth confides in Jane, who is astonished at the news, but as soon as she realizes that Darcy and Elizabeth are really in love, she is delighted. Darcy asks for Mr. Bennet's consent the next day, and the news is broken to the whole family. Mrs. Bennet can think of nothing but Darcy's wealth, and consequently is very happy with how things have turned out. Chapter 60. The news of Darcy and Elizabeth's engagement is conveyed by Darcy to Lady Catherine, by Elizabeth to Mrs. Gardiner, and by Mr. Bennet to Mr. Collins. Elizabeth is embarrassed by her vulgar relations to whom Darcy is now constantly exposed, but looks forward to a more elegant social circle at Pemberley. Now, symbolism. We're going to discuss about symbolism in Pride and Prejudice. The first symbol is dancing. We are going to talk about dancing. One of the most obvious symbols in Pride and Prejudice is dancing. A couple's compatibility in dance is almost always a symbol of their relationship. When Elizabeth and Darcy dance together the first time, their steps are stilted and formal, much like their relationship at that point. Neither knows quite what to do with the other, and each shows in the hesitating steps back and forth and the awkward breaks in their conversations. Their courtship will be filled with hesitating steps and misunderstandings. Likewise, when Elizabeth has to suffer through a dance with Mr. Collins, she missteps, grovels, and embarrasses in front of her friends and family, just as he will do later when he proposes to her. We do not get to see Elizabeth and Darcy dance together after they are engaged, but it is easy to imagine the smooth steps and easy, if reserved, affection they will finally be able to show each other on the dance floor. Next symbol, the outdoors. Another symbol in Pride and Prejudice is the outdoors. Outdoor settings become symbols of openness and understanding, a loosening of the rigid expectations of society, with few exceptions. Darcy and Elizabeth move towards each other emotionally in outdoor settings. Indoors, their misunderstandings tend to multiply. This is true at Netherfield, in Kent, and especially at Pemberley. The pattern continues right up to the end of the novel, when Elizabeth and Darcy, after a long separation, are at least together inside Longbourn. But they still cannot speak freely to each other. It is not until they take a walk outside together that they finally come to an understanding with each other. Then they go back inside Longbourn and endure another uncomfortable evening in company with her family before announcing their engagement. One has the idea that this couple would be content to be always outside of the house and outside of the rules and class distinctions that have made their courtship so difficult. Pemberley, the estate. Pride and Prejudice is remarkably free of explicit symbolism, which perhaps has something to do with the novel's reliance on dialogue over description. Nevertheless, Pemberley, Darcy's estate, sits at the center of the novel, literally and figuratively, as a geographic symbol of the man who owns it. Elizabeth visits it at a time when her feelings toward Darcy are beginning to warm. She is enchanted by its beauty and charm, and by the picturesque countryside, just as she will be charmed increasingly by the gifts of its owner. Austen makes the connection explicit when she describes the stream that flows beside the mansion. In front, she writes, a stream of some natural importance was soiled into greater but without any artificial appearance. Darcy possesses a natural importance that is showed by his arrogance, but which coexists with a genuine honesty and lack of artificial appearance. Like the stream, he is neither formal nor falsely adorned. Pemberley even offers a symbol within a symbol for their budding romance. When Elizabeth encounters Darcy on the stage, she is crossing a small bridge, suggesting the broad gulf of misunderstanding and class prejudice that lies between them, and the bridge that their love will build across it. That's the end of the lesson. Thank you very much for being with me.